Welcome to the Fast Lane. Nik Miles is our auto expert, so drop it into gear. You've got a green flag. Here's Nik.
Oh, it's been a very long journey to get to this radio station. 22 hours of flying, 28 hours of traveling, and the camel flu. More of that to come. We have a packed studio today. Ryan's here, Jen's here, Megan's here, John Eric's here, looking all pretty in the producer booth over there. He's had his hair specially done for the show. Do you want me to put the sock on the microphone? No, it'll just make things worse. We're here to talk about cars. The Portland Auto Show has been ongoing, and our animal rescue rig has been in the show. I went to see it yesterday just to check, it was all in one piece, because we let everyone get in and out of it and play with it. And this gentleman came up to me who is about 7 foot something tall, and his shoulders were just as broad, and he said, "Hey, can I get a picture with you and my son?" I was like, "Why? I wanted somewhere? What's going on here? Like, fugitive at large?" He said, "No, I'm from Multnomah County Sheriff's Department. I did the search and rescue. I really love your rig, and I want to take a picture with you." And I was like, wow, it's the first time I got recognized, and it wasn't because of something I'd done wrong. It's just I was really happy about that on the show. The rig's there in the corner of the show. It's all Linexed out. The guy, some hard notch customs, basically did the original design, and then a lot of other people got to play with it. And it's right next to the Wheelcraft booth, because they did the pretty wheels on the vehicle. Nice big sick rims, 6.5-inch lift, and part of the animal rescue rig fleet. And now we've done this vehicle. I'm getting a lot of phone calls from people saying, "Can you make us a vehicle?" We got a phone call from a guy, the Yukon vet from the History Channel. She came down, she saw the vehicle, she wanted to know if we could make her one. We got a guy who does rescuing on another show on TV, asked if we could make him a couple.
And the United States Humane Society also reached out?
Yeah, the SPCA reached out and said, "We'd love to talk to you about being partners so you could help rescue some of our animals." So it looks like this whole animal rescue thing is going to turn into a job. We're going to do lots of it. Imagine that. Terrible. The only trouble is, with animal rescue stuff, there has to be a disaster first, which is the bad part. And then I get all freaked out, because if I can't rescue every animal, I feel like I've failed. And my other half's looking at me going, "We're not having any more animals. Just letting you know, there's no room for ducks and chickens and goats in our backyard," because I want to go rescue everything. I talked to a couple of people from Ram the other day, and they're like, can we get horse boxes for you? Can you put horse boxes on the back so you can rescue horses? I mean, I'll rescue them if we can bring them to your house. I'm not sure where I'm going to put them. You don't have an animal yet, do you, Megan?
No.
Can we rescue something for you?
No, thank you.
Really?
Yes, really.
What? You just don't do well with the animals, do you?
I just don't get it. I'll be honest. I don't understand the animal lover thing at all.
You have children. Sometimes I'm like, man, I just don't get it.
I know. Yeah.
109th on the list of things that Megan doesn't get.
Sure.
You have animals, though?
I do. I have 2 Siberian cats.
They're not really rescues, though, are they?
No, not at all.
You don't rescue Siberian cat. How much do you pay for them?
A lot of money.
Yeah. You have a rescue, don't you, Ryan?
Yeah, I have a rescue.
You have Cooper?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we all have rescue animals. We love it. I have 3 rescues and two non-rescue animals. So anyway, the animal rescue rig seems to be a success. And then the last week, this strange trip going to Dubai, to Bahrain. The first thing about Bahrain, which is really weird, is it's a long way away. It's a long way.
Where is it?
It's in the Middle East. So Saudi Arabia is a bridge away. Iran is just around the corner. It's you'd think it's a little scary.
Is it an island?
It's a peninsula.
Okay.
So I was a little bit nervous going, first of all, because, they say, "Hey, you're going to the Middle East." I'm like, okay.
You didn't look nervous in the photo you posted.
I was. There's some nervous photos in there.
Did you bring your Make America Great hat?
No, that would have made me really nervous. No, but they do have. I went and I found out. I did some research, and all of the tourist videos are of a man and a wife and their little white dog walking through the streets of Bahrain. So I was like, it can't be that scary if they got a little white dog with them that's trotting along behind them without a leash. So it can't be that. And then, gay marriage is legal there. And so it's just a pretty progressive country. The security is really high, though. It's just I went on the F1 track there, but the security is pretty high. Hotel, you drive into sort of 2 barricades, they search the car. And you drive into the hotel, they take your luggage and they x-ray it and you go through metal detectors.
I was at a hotel like that one time in Thailand, in Chiang Mai.
They want to make sure that you're really safe. Well, at least you feel like you're really safe. You don't know if you are, but it makes you feel like you're safe.
Impression.
Well, I did some research after that, and it turns out that was like the only hotel in town that did that.
Oh.
So...
Safest hotel in town, guaranteed.
The most disturbing thing that I came across was beef bacon.
Oh, I saw that. How was it? Did it taste delicious?
It was the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted in my life. I smelt it and I felt sick. I love a steak. Who doesn't love a steak? However, here's the problem. They try and imitate pork products because obviously it's a majority of Muslim country, so
it's unacceptable.
And they pretend that they're chicken sausage. Well, we've had that before. It's not horrendous. That's a past thing. But beef bacon, it was really.
What part of the cow did they make the beef bacon from?
The smelly part. It was not good. Anyway, the good part of it was that I got to realize what a really bad driver I am. Because they gave me this car that
I could have told you that years ago.
2.9. Well, I'm usually like in the middle of the pack. The instructor had to slow down to catch me up.
In the middle of the journalist pack, though. We know how they drive.
Well, I think they challenge you to see there's some pretty good journalists out there that can drive.
Yeah, there's one or two.
Well, I could think of there's plenty of really, really good journalist drivers, but
I'm an excellent driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, Megan's
slow
one of
and
them.
steady.
All right. But when they give you something that does 0 to 62 miles an hour in 2.9 seconds, I was way out of my league.
Did you wreck it?
Wait, no. I didn't. It's so stable. Even if I drifted it around the corners and it was smoking tires, it's really hard to mess the car up. But if you don't get the gear right...
Wait, which car are we talking about?
The Lamborghini Huracan Evo.
Ooh.
206.
Isn't it all-wheel drive?
Yeah, it drifts. They've made it so you can drift.
Oh, my.
It's amazing. You drifted around the corners. The video, I'll be posting that on Our Auto Expert tomorrow. So if you want to see me drifting around the corner.
Are you screaming like a little girl?
All right, you've seen the video. Really packed show coming up today. Loads of stuff. You want to stay tuned because we're talking cars and we're going to have some exclusives with some new cars on the market. That's next.
Listening. More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is coming up. Start your engines and you're off. Back to Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles.
If I was to tell you that Kia were a tease, they definitely are a tease. They've been teasing this vehicle for quite a while. In fact, they were giving rides in the new Kia Telluride before it became available. But finally, at the Detroit, or the North American International Auto Show, we got to see the final Kia Telluride brought to market. 8-seater and full of the latest tech. And to give us a rundown on the vehicle, James Bell is joining us on the phone. He is the chief bottle washer at Kia. James,
you got me there.
First of all, why tease us so much? Why did it take so long to show us the final car? We saw lots of different versions. You even got a ride in it at SEMA, but you sort of held it back.
Because you love it, Nick. Let's be honest.
I like it when you're a tease. It makes me feel good.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, boy.
So, well, we really wanted to kind of separate ourselves a little bit. We knew we had an interesting vehicle here, that we had, a couple different elements. It had that style and that grace and beautiful interior that we really wanted to highlight. So we did that at New York Fashion Week. Then we toughened up a couple early production versions and took them out to SEMA and beat the you-know-what out of them. And then, as you correctly pointed out, that we had the production version that debuted at the Detroit show, a week and a half ago.
Yeah, how different is the production version to the sort of the teasing versions that we got to see?
Well, the New York Fashion Week vehicle was made in conjunction with consultation from Brandon Maxwell, who's a well-known designer, does a lot of gowns for Lady Gaga and Meghan Markle and a handful of others. And so in that vehicle, he wanted to really play up the kind of Texas chic element. So, we had leather wrapping the the rear mirrors and the door handles. Obviously, things that would not ever make it through into production. I did some really nice
or a car wash or a car wash, by the way. Yeah.
I think that's why it wouldn't work so well in production. Yeah, Kia's quality standards would be highly violated at that point.
So, we got a final production version of the vehicle. What are sort of the standard specs? What are we looking at for powertrain and for space and for tech?
Yep, 3.8 liter V6 puts out just under 300 horsepower. It's Atkinson cycle, which is interesting. That's normally technology that's used on hybrid vehicles to get maximum fuel efficiency. 8-speed gearbox, designed and built in-house by Kia. Tech is really one of the places that it's really stands out. We've got it's basically Kia's closest vehicle to our upcoming autonomous future. Now, it isn't such that you can jump in it and push a button and say, "Take me to Grandma's house," but it is absolutely loaded with sensors, both on the front, the rear, and even on the sides. One thing that's really neat, it uses the side sensors when you come to a stop. So let's say you have kids in the back seat, and they're going to jump out, possibly out into where traffic is. If there's any sort of threat, like a car coming, a bicycle, anything like that, those sensors are still working, and they'll keep the door locked until the threat passes. So yeah, this thing is again, it's our closest thing to autonomous, and it really shows that Kia has taken a leadership position in this, and not just being a follower.
Now, does it end up as part of the Kia family value proposition? Because that's always been the great deal for Kia: 100,000 mile warranty, 10 years, right. Great fuel economy for a reasonable price. Now you have an 8-seater SUV with 3 rows. Is it still in that wheelhouse?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We haven't announced final pricing on it yet, but it's going to position itself just a little above, say, where the Sorento is now. So I'm guessing, for a fully loaded model, you'd be just under 50, and for a well-equipped one, probably in the low 40s.
That's fantastic.
Around 40. So it should be a hot seller.
And one of the things that obviously Americans love right now is their 3-row SUVs, large SUVs. A lot of other people jumping on the bandwagon. This is about the biggest vehicle you could build, isn't it? I mean, you don't have a capability of getting a bigger one.
Yeah, no, this is the biggest vehicle in Kia's history, and we think it's coming out just, as you say, at the right time, going into a real sweet spot in the market. When we look at new competitors like the Volkswagen Atlas and the Subaru Ascent, which are doing both very well in the market, we think that we're going to come in with that Kia value story, but then also a much more beautiful interior. We didn't really talk about that. What I was really enchanted by at the Detroit show was hearing media come up to me and say, "My gosh, that's like a Rolls Royce, Range Rover interior." And I didn't see that, Nick. That's what they said to me, so I believe it.
It wasn't PR rhetoric. It was the truth.
Wait, and is that the Texas Chic?
Yes.
Interior?
No. The Texas Chic was the model that they had out at SEMA, which was the one at the New York Fashion Week. They had the leather on the outside.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Well, I can show you pictures of Texas Chic. Megan likes anything. When you mention Texas in front of anything, Megan gets really excited.
Oh, well, these pictures are going to make your day.
All right, so when does this go on sale? When do we get to drive it? When do we get to play with it?
It's ramping up production in a big way right now at our facility in West Point, Georgia, and we are expecting to have them in showrooms probably the back end of February, maybe early March, and have them out in the press fleet for good folks like yourself as soon as possible.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Kia seems to be doing extraordinarily well right now. You're selling lots of cars, you're winning lots of awards, and you're getting nominated for lots, including engines and interiors. Yeah, no, I mean, I've really joined this company at the right time because, there's a term in Korean that says pali pali, and what that means is hurry, hurry. And I'm basically the recipient or the benefactor of some fantastic technology and design and ideas that were hatched in Kia, say, 5 years ago, and now all starting to bear fruit. And so, yeah, it's definitely on the company on the rise, and it's done with great product. It's not with a great PR guy or anything like that. The technology as far as communication on the inside, you have your Evo system in there, which is really like a connection of all things, sort of safety, tech, and navigation and audio together, right?
And yes, of course, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto come standard. And that's something, I'm sure you've noticed this, Nick, in some of the vehicles you've tested lately, is still kind of hit or miss with other manufacturers and vehicles that are at a much higher price point. Just to have that instant connectivity for no matter what phone you have. A lot of other companies are making you choose one or the other, or just plug into their own system, and that's not the key away.
Well, actually, you've hit the nail on the head there. It bugs me because I am an Android guy.
Which is super weird.
I know. I'm an Android guy, but a lot of people don't like to embrace the Android Auto. It's like Apple CarPlay or their system, or you're out. And so I like that idea. All right.
Yeah, we're all in.
It's a car for everybody. Should we be watching Chicago and Detroit for auto shows coming up for some special Kia information?
Well, we got Chicago coming up in, just a few weeks. Just going to have some updates on some current vehicles. So nothing too super exciting, but New York, I'm excited to say, I think we're going to have the first concept car that I've been around to the debut of, and it's a stunner. So, yes, definitely keep your eyes open for New York in April.
The last one we had was, I remember, was the Stinger, and that turned out to be pretty cool. So
that worked out just fine, yes.
Yeah, so that was a big winner for you guys. And the next one, all right, I'm holding my breath. James Bell, it's always delightful to talk to you, and I will look forward to having a Telluride in my driveway very soon so I can go test it and be rugged and manly and do outdoor things.
So you're going to bring me?
And Texas speed.
Yeah, yes, exactly. All right, James Bell from Kia, and of course you can find out more at their website, which is kia.com. You can go see their new cars. They're doing really well. I'm actually super. I remember the first Kia launch I went on was the Borrego. That was probably 10 years ago. That was a big SUV. It was very much like the Ford Explorer. It lasted about a year. That was right 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. And then fuel prices went up to like $5 a gallon. that was out the window. Goodbye to that vehicle. So that was the end of that. But they're back with big vehicles, which is nice. I prefer bigger vehicles. Jen, you have trucks, big trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Megan, you're from Texas, so we know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan likes sports cars better.
I like cars.
Yeah, he likes sedans.
And just anything.
He is the oldest 27-year-old I know. Yeah. He's like 55.
You're Craig? Who's Craig Cole? Does everybody know Craig Cole?
Yeah. He's, you're an old soul, aren't you, when it comes to your cars?
I like a good sedan.
But you don't like wagons, like Nick does.
I mean, I enjoy a wagon, but I'm not...
Nick.
You're not a wagon waver. I'm a wagon waver. You put 1.5-inch lift on a wagon, it becomes an SUV.
Woohoo!
You see?
I'll never understand the wagon.
Yeah, well, all right. There's lots of things I'll never understand about you, Megan.
We don't have enough time.
Including Texas. Coming up, more stuff. You're listening to Our Auto Expert 24/7 at OurAutoExpert.com. I'm Nik Miles.
Stay tuned. There's more to come with Nik Miles. Jump right in and put the pedal to the floor. Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles continues.
So if you haven't been to the Our Auto Expert website, you should go. There's some very cool articles there. Perry went to Valencia in Spain to drive the new 911, the Porsche. You can read his story there. Also, we've had some pretty cool stuff going on in the last couple of weeks, including this trip we just made. Not sure why they invited me. I didn't think I was worthy because there was only like 12 people invited, but...
Don't complain.
Don't speak that out there.
Don't throw it out to everyone. There was 12 people invited to go drive the Huracan Evo. 12 TV journalists, and nicely, the Italians provided a TV crew, which were, footage is pretty amazing that they shot. Even the footage inside the car, it looks like it's done with like a cinematographer.
I think it looks okay.
Well, it's raw, so what you're watching, it hasn't been colorized.
You're just jealous.
Okay.
I think it's pretty good.
I think pretty good. Yeah.
Anyway, this car, 631 horsepower, 5.2 liter V10 engine, and the human-machine interface, which it's a little bit. I would say the interface system is the most I've ever had. Like driving would be something similar to a Starship. The cool thing about it is the things that you can tell I'm not a total gearhead, but what I find really cool is to change the volume on the music or the phone inside the car. You take two fingers and you just tap on the screen and you slide the fingers up and down. and it'll change the volume. 3 fingers, if you tap on the screen, it'll mute the volume.
Which is
Imagine-
extremely easy when you're on the track in a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Right,
Putting
so-
2 fingers on the screen is really easy.
It's much easier than reaching to find the volume knob, which I
It's
think.
normally on the steering wheel, right?
No, they have it on the steering wheel too.
Yeah, which makes
So
it
you
really
could
easy.
do, but you could just go tom, 3 fingers, and it's dead. I like that idea because it's so much easier than trying to find buttons and change stations. They've done everything with just taps of fingers.
I'm
and it's
glad
really
that they're making life easier when you're driving a Lamborghini.
you
It's
have
hard.
to.
Life is hard when you're
They're
driving a Lamborghini.
trying very hard to make this car usable for the everyday person who's
Yeah,
not rich.
I understood. That's why they made the Evo. That's what I understood. Is it's for the everyday driver. It's not for the track driver. It's for
Oh,
everybody.
but it's way fast. It's 3 seconds faster than the last Huracan.
Yeah,
which
but
is-
that's what their thing is, though. That's their tagline is it's made for everybody. This is everybody's driver. This is every day.
So one of the big things about this vehicle is they don't improve the vehicle just to have better numbers. And I was like, what do you mean by that? I was talking to the chief technical officer, and he said, well, what we really do is if I'm going to create more horsepower, if you can go to 707 horsepower or 600, you have to have it usable. There's no point in putting more horsepower in unless it goes onto the road and is usable. If your wheels are just going to spin out and you're going to go nowhere, he says, what's the point?
I think
the car
they're
has to
calling
go
out FCA.
faster.
I take that. That's mean. I love pointless horsepower. You don't love pointless horsepower?
No, I want my horsepower to go to the road, not
Oh,
just
God,
to make
I
noise.
love pointless horsepower.
I do too, actually.
Right? There's nothing like a
I'm with
Hellcat.
you.
I want it to go faster. If it's going to do it, I want it to go faster. And the other thing about this is I drove it in the regular road mode, which you would drive it in automatic around the track for the first 2 laps. I couldn't handle it. The second you put it into Corsa or Sport and you go to manual gear, it's so much easier to drive, which is the first time I've ever had that experience. The car becomes so much easier to drive. And the way they've designed it is the car is intuitive. It knows when you're going to make a turn just by the way you grip the wheel and the way you move the wheel. So it's already powering the wheels where it knows you're going to turn into. So when you come up to a corner and I need to make the corner whip round really fast and stick the back end out, as I make that turn, the power is driving on that back inside wheel. You could just feel it spin forward and spin you up. And I was really, really impressed with that. I did have a bit of a language barrier with the Italians because there's one of the experiences I had. I've never had this experience before, and it's probably because I haven't driven an F1 track at such speeds. The only time I dared look at the speedometer, I was doing 260 kilometers an hour. And that was about midway down the back straight. I daren't look down again when I got to the end because I was waiting for the brake lights to come on in front of me so I knew when to brake. So I was a little bit scared. But there is so much rubber on those tracks that they were replacing windshields all day. I mean, the amount of rubber, it was like someone was spray cannoning rubber on the front of your car. It was like boom, 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 boom. Pieces of rubber just hitting the windshield because the track's covered in bits of rubber that have come off the tires. And so there's bits of rubber and gravel hitting it, and the windshield star here and a star there in the windshield. And that was, to me, an experience. I never knew that F1 drivers had to go through so much debris on the track.
Do they have all of you at the same time?
No, you just went, it was you and an instructor.
Okay, cool.
So, but they had 8 teams out on the, no, is it 8 cars, 4 teams at the time. So there's a 10-second delay. So the first team went, it was 1-1, you know, they counted off, and the second team would win because you would never catch them up. You're just going way too fast on those. And there's a few people gotten themselves into trouble. I don't think they'll be invited back.
Was it you?
No,
Okay.
no, they really like me.
Now you could say you drove one, so we're even.
And now I can say I drove one.
Yeah, because you were complaining the last time.
Yeah,
'Cause
there's-
I did and you didn't.
That was my first. That was the second Lamborghini I've driven.
I was going to say.
I drove the Urus.
I've never driven a Lamborghini. Not that I can think of.
It's an experience.
It is.
I was in
I don't
love.
think you would really forget it.
I was in love with Ferrari
Yeah, me
until I
too.
drove a Lamborghini. And now, I mean, I still do. I get Ferraris and I understand it, but I have a different kind of appreciation for Lamborghini. And they're really, really nice cars. And they're a nice price too. Starting price $261,000.
And that's for the average consumer?
Well, that's for anybody if you have the money. Starting price of $261,000. If you want to put extras on the car, then it goes up from there. It could be a lot more expensive.
I swear earlier you said this is the car for the people that aren't rich.
Yeah, no,
Did I misunderstand?
the average consumer, meaning that you could drive it to work every day.
Oh.
During the break, I'll be explaining everything to Megan again. More out of Our Auto Expert as we continue.
Stay tuned. More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is on the way. Our Auto Expert continues. Here's your host, Nik Miles.
There's a lot of new car tech coming out over the next year or so. We've seen cyclist detection added to vehicles. So as you drive, vehicles will detect whether there's a cyclist coming, and you could possibly run into a cyclist or have that sort of problem with a cyclist. Low light detection of pedestrians. That's another thing that a lot of car companies are starting to put on it. James Bell mentioned it when he talked about the Kia Telluride. The fact is that now you can't open the rear doors to get out if there's oncoming traffic. And in the new Jaguar I-Pace, there's a little symbol on the inside of the car that lets you know if there's something coming and you try to open the door, it lights up. Which I think is a great idea, especially since you can't always control your... I mean, was it your biggest fear as a mother when you had kids, Megan, that they would open the back door and get whacked by a car?
Well, there were times that my kids opened the back door while I was driving down the road.
Oh, that's why they have child locks.
Well, I know, and I'd pull over and put the child lock on. But the thing is, I mean, sometimes you just forget or you turn it off for some reason. So you're saying that this technology will work for the back seat as well?
Yeah, it's for the back seats specifically.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then there's also in some of the new cars, like the new Hyundai Palisades, I think it's called. They have a lock so you can disable the rear doors, but from a button up front. So it's a child lock which has a button up front. So your kids can't open the back doors unless you hit the button.
So that's great too. I mean, that's way better than having to pull over and get out of the car.
And the best one, especially for you, Megan, which I know that this is something would help you out a lot in your life, is that if you get out the car and go into the house and you've accidentally left one of your kids in the back, the car will alarm you to let you know there's something moving in the back seat.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. That's something that I think consumers have wanted to come to market for a really long time.
Jen's giving me a dirty stare now because I was making a joke that you'd leave your kids in the back seat. Sorry.
Look, I mean, you can say that you wouldn't, but the fact is that a lot of people do. And one time in Texas, I left Eden in the back of the car, and I walked into Target, and someone called me on the phone and said, "What are y'all doing?" And I was like, "Y'all?" I was like, "Oh my God!" And I hadn't walked into the store yet, so I mean, she was only in there for a handful of seconds. But I turned around and ran back to the car. Like,
right.
It can happen. And
I have dogs in the back of the car, and sometimes you get to running errands, and your dog's sitting in the back of the car, and you stop and get a Starbucks. You run into the bank for 2 minutes, or you run to the ATM and stuff, and then you get out, and then you get home, and I mean, it's one of the biggest fears is accidentally leaving the dog in the back of the car.
Yeah, and it's a valid fear.
God, scary. So the modern cars can actually signal you if there's something left in the back seat of the car. It can send
what's
a
nice
text
too is
to
like
you.
I think it's going to be double duty because the car will be able to do it and the car seat.
Oh, they have car seats that do it now too.
Car seats are coming, yeah.
All right. And then we saw that horrible video of the lady that didn't install her car seat in the back of the car correctly.
Oh my gosh. And apparently didn't have the child lock on.
Yeah, and the car seat and the child came out of the car.
And here's the thing. You can go to any fire department in the United States and they will install your car seat for you.
And they'll show you, I'm a big supporter of you being educated. So having a fire department installing the car seat for you is just 10% of what you need to do. You should know how to have the car seat that you bought installed, because if you have to take it out, you got to make sure it gets put back in correctly, and people aren't going to run to the fire station or the sheriff's department and have it installed each time. Well, so you should also know how to do it yourself.
Yeah, and what's really tough is like the car seats that my kids were in were not the car seats that are available now. So I remember when my niece was born, I couldn't figure out how to get the car seat in.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, look at that.
Jen's really excited because we were gonna have a guest on the phone, but she actually showed up in studio here. And she's here in person. Myriam Joire is here.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm
world famous
best radio voice.
World famous blogger, podcaster, just showed up in the studio.
That's right, mobiletechpodcast.com if you want to listen to this voice all day.
I watched a phone review of yours the other day, And I just had to, because I miss you so much, because we spent 2 weeks driving around America together, and I had to play it several times.
Thank you.
I was like, it was the Google Pixel 3.
Fantastic.
And you showed the difference between the XL and the regular one.
That's right.
So what we were going to talk about was tech. We were talking about tech in cars, and just before you walked into the studio, thank you for coming, by the way.
You're very welcome. A little crazy out there with some run or something going on.
Yeah, well, there's always a run somewhere outside the studio. So we were talking about the fact is that now all these cars can tell you if there's some kid in the back seat, and car seats that can tell you if you left your kid in the car. And your pet, which is, more for me because I don't have the kids, but I have the pets.
You have your own version of kids.
Yes, I have 4-legged furry kids. So there's a lot of these new safety systems in cars are now telling us when we do things wrong and how stupid we are.
Yeah, no, unfortunately people are doing stupid things. And I don't want to be hard on them. Obviously, it's happened to everyone. We've forgotten something critical in the car. And the worst is obviously your pets or your kids, right? And we have technology. Why don't we put it to a service, right? And I think also the other thing is, in the old days, if a kid was stuck in the car and you forgot and a person walked by and saw the kid, they could maybe break a window or something. Now we probably have the technology to unlock the car remotely. I think it's a lot better to have these options at least.
Yeah.
Options are always good.
Do you worry, because I worry sometimes, that the technology we have in modern cars makes us not to bother anymore because the car
it makes us more stupid.
Yeah,
maybe
I agree.
Look, I'm going to say this. I
don't
feel
think
like
that at all.
No. I feel like it has the potential. I have cars that span 3 decades, and when I drive my oldest cars, I really have to be on top of it. And I drive my newest cars as much as they're much, much better. Everything is so much better. I do have to say that the automation does make me complacent. I'm feeling it. I'm noticing it. And I'm a technology person. I love the tech and I love my cars, but I think it's tough. I think we have to perhaps continue, driving older cars so we can remember what it's like and get trained back to, I don't know how the solution. I think
the solution is you can't own a new car until you've owned an old car that doesn't have all the systems.
Maybe that's the
You should have to learn to drive a manual. You should have
no ABS.
No air conditioning.
No air conditioning. You should
suffer.
Well, you're going to have generations of people that don't know how to drive a manual.
Right.
No roof. No seats.
A spike.
Where do we go? That's
the
issue, right? What's the line you draw, right? It's really tough, right? Because, some people are hardcore. They're like, fuel injection's too modern, right? I would argue that fuel injection made everything better.
So I just sold my Land Rover this week, and I bought a Lexus SUV. And the difference between the two is amazing.
I bet.
I love my Land Rover, don't get me wrong. You can go through anything. I used to take the police officers to work when it snowed. But the Lexus, oh my goodness me. The Lexus is the Land Rover was a 2002. The Lexus is pretty new. It's just it's a year or two old. So the Lexus it's like so many years difference. There's 16 years between the two cars.
That's not a lot, actually.
The difference is that
I really feel this last 15 years have really changed things. Do you guys feel that? In terms of comfort, ease of use in every way, not just ease of driving, ease of everything, it's really a leap forward. And, I agree with you. Maybe I'm being too strong when I say stupid. I think there's a potential there. I see it. I think there's a lot of people, this is a special show. We all car enthusiasts. So it's different, I think. But the average person just wants to get from point A to point B comfortably, quietly, and do other stuff. And ultimately, autonomy will take us there. But And for those people, maybe it's good. Maybe it's good that there's all these assists because they don't care anyway. They don't want to care.
80% of people want their car to be a toaster, a utility.
Correct.
They don't.
And then maybe you're right then. But for those of us, I honestly feel as a car enthusiast when I drive my newer cars often, I stop paying attention to things that I used to pay attention because I'm getting complacent. Oh, blind spot detection.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't always sort of check. Maybe only when it's really critical.
Yeah. Do you turn your head and look over your shoulder less or more? I do once in a while,
but less. See?
But you're right.
So I can't get used to the rear view backup camera, and that's been out for a really long time. And every time I turn and look, I don't use it.
What don't you like? I'll tell you what I don't like in technology. I don't like the rear view mirror camera. So where the mirror is a camera.
Right.
So I have trifocals, and it never looks right to me. It looks. I look at it and I feel like I can't see everything.
And I love the rear view mirror camera.
Really?
Yeah. I remember the first time I saw it, I was thrilled out of my mind.
Well, I enjoy it because I like to do things in the camera at the back when people are sitting in traffic.
But when we camp, we pack a car. I mean, we pack that car out, so we can't see at all. So, I mean, now you can.
Myriam, what don't you like about new technology?
The blinkers that don't have a physical notch anymore.
Right, so you just push it down.
I get it, because some cars have the ability to turn on the blinkers for you when you lane change. And my Tesla, when I do autopilot, it lane changes, it does a blinker for you. If I could override that, it couldn't do it, right? So that's why they have that feature. BMW started a few years ago. I think a lot of people have it now. But I'm like so old school. I'm like, I want my blinker to stay down, physically down when I want it down. And it takes me a really long time to get used to driving in that car every time I drive, because it doesn't have the...
It's so funny you should mention that, because the new Lexus GX I just bought is old school blinker. Like it's a click down, and the sound is like...
Oh, it's nice. Yeah.
There are just some things that you want. But with that said, I'm teaching my 15-year-old daughter to drive right now, and I'm having to tell her, she's like, wait, which way? Up, down? I'm like...
Oh, really?
So I'm like, get in the left lane, push down. Get in the right lane.
And you know that's because if it's just a temporary contact, there's no physical manifestation of what the position of the stalk is, right? Because it resets back to center.
Yeah.
So kids don't understand, because it's really up and down versus left and right? So if it was on the top sticking up, and it'd be really easy. You'd know to go this way. I think that's exactly the kind of stuff that we all take for granted because we grew up with physical things, and they can't fathom because they've never seen it or experienced it.
Jen, what do you hate about modern tech and cars?
I don't have as much.
Jen has old school Chevy trucks. Hey, listen, as long as it's got a manual, a big diesel engine, you're happy, right?
No diesel.
Oh, gas?
Yeah.
All right, gas. I am so excited you're here in studio, Myriam.
Thanks for having me. I should come more often.
Let's cancel the next segment and just have Myriam, because I just want to have you in.
All right,
it's tons of fun. Oh, you already did it. The producer made a corporate decision here, and it's Myriam Joire all show.
Yep.
All the time. I want to talk some more about the new autonomous driving features that are coming in cars.
Yeah.
Audi put headlights in their A7 that are illegal in the United States, but they didn't activate the new feature on them because they're waiting for a law.
That drives me nuts. Like, this is actually anything that's passive technology, in the sense that, it's something that assists you, but that is really like ABS, etc. To me, that stuff, like, I cannot believe the DOT is still not on top of Matrix headlights. It's only been 5 years since Audi introduced Matrix.
Right. And the question is, we still have a law that says you can have high beams or low beams, but it doesn't allow for anything in between.
If you've ever driven in Europe with Matrix headlights, it's amazing. A revelation.
Yeah.
And the fact that it obscures in a little kind of like shadow beam the car that's ahead of you or coming towards you is incredible, and it tracks it. It's incredible.
Right. So if you guys don't know, Matrix headlights is you can have them on high beams. When it has a car coming towards it, it blacks out that car so they don't get high beams, only where the car is. But the high beams shine around the car.
What?
Correct. What?
Yep.
Stop talking about that crazy stuff on the radio.
You just blew my mind.
It's
incredible.
They're in all new Audi A7s, but the feature is not activated because the law doesn't allow. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more technology. Our special guest in studio, Myriam Joire, is here. We're talking about car tech, and you can find all of that at Our Auto Expert 24/7 online, on Instagram, on the Facebook, on the Twitters, and we'll have some new website news coming up.
Don't go away. There's more to come with Nik Miles. Our Auto Expert will be right back. Welcome to the Fast Lane. Nik Miles is our auto expert. So drop it into gear. You've got a green flag. Here's Nik.
So we had a surprise guest show up in the studio today. We were expecting to have her on the phone, but she showed up in person. Myriam Joire. How do people follow you? Let's get that out of the way first, because there's lots.
So I do a weekly tech podcast about mobile technology, anything that's portable, personal, and to me, cars are large mobile devices. Instead of carrying them, you get in them, right? So it's also got car content. If you're a car person, you should go mobiletechpodcast.com. We're also on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all the other platforms. Look for Mobile Tech Podcast.
When Mercedes introduced the CLA at CES this year, they called it the world's largest, most advanced wearable.
There you go. See?
I'm not sure I'm copacetic with that.
I love it.
I mean, it's a stretch, but it's fun.
My brain doesn't really get around it. But cars are becoming more wearable, aren't they?
I think the technology on some of the new cars is, there's so much software now. It's like an iPad on wheels. You look at Teslas, you look at, any high-end car that has some sort of EV capability. The mechanical parts are actually pretty simple now compared to even, the best of the gasoline or diesel cars. So
a lot of car companies who made traditional car parts like transmissions are now trying to wonder what they're going to be doing in 10 years' time, because there's going to be no transmissions. There's going to be no gas engines. Things are going to be different. So companies that have survived on that for years won't be making the bulk of their money from that. I don't think they're going to go away. There's going to still be a hardcore car lover, V8 horsepower, rev roaring craziness about us.
And I mean, even EVs, you need to transmit the power from that motor to the wheels in some way. That requires a reduction gearbox usually. One single speed essentially. So those need to be high quality parts. Their expected life, is going to be 200, 300,000 miles without any oil changes on these gearboxes, on these reduction boxes. So that's where their expertise is going to come in. These guys know how to manufacture, how to precision machine gears that are super resilient to long-term wear. I think this is where they're going to go.
There are some very interesting portions of technology now with these vehicles. Let's just visit a couple of them. Wi-Fi, for instance. The new Ford Edge and the Explorer is going to have Wi-Fi in it that radiates 50 feet outside of the vehicle. So you go campsites and you can share Wi-Fi with 10 people in tents next to the car and just run it off the car. Wi-Fi, where it used to be something really just for luxury cars or a separate unit installed in the car, is pretty much the norm now.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a two-way street, right? On one hand, you get yourself some hotspot action in your car or in your surroundings, but at the same time, for manufacturers, it's telematics, right? They can diagnose your car. And the biggest feature is, I think, we've seen this on some kind of companies, is you send a software update, suddenly the car does new stuff. Right? Suddenly the car performs better. That's, I think, where we're headed, and you need connectivity, so why not give hotspot to everyone at the same time?
I think it's coming, and it's going to be something of the norm. I went to the Jaguar Land Rover Research Center in Portland, and when I was there, and this was about 3 years ago, they were showing me technology they were working on for the future, where, for instance, if you drove your Jaguar Land Rover out to the middle of the Sahara Desert, and you left it there for somebody to pick up, that person would just have to get close enough to the car where the car could read their phone, either near-field communications or Bluetooth, sense their phone and the code that was in their phone, the email that you'd sent them, read it, and then it would unlock and turn itself on and allow them to drive it. And that technology, I think, is going to become more prevalent. So in the new Lincoln Aviator, their new SUV, which is about the size of the Explorer, you won't have a physical key to drive the car. You will send that key to your loved ones or your friends or the service manager, and then they will be able to drive the car until you disable it. The best part about this is, Megan should be really excited about this, if your 18-year-old or 17-year-old son or your 15-year-old daughter goes out in the car and you should get on the phone with them and they're being a brat, just turn the phone off and they can get an Uber home. That's it. Car disabled. Get an Uber home. You're done. I like that. That's funny. I like that idea. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm a bit of a misogynist, but it's probably not something you should do with everybody. But the technology's completely changing on how we'll operate our cars, right?
Yeah, when I was grounded, speaking of technology, my dad would just pull the spark plugs. So,
wow.
Yeah, big difference, huh?
See,
that's funny too.
And someone like Myriam would probably have just screwed him back in. She'd have worked it out.
Well, it took me a while to figure out what he was doing. But
eventually you do.
Yeah, I can do my own spark plugs now.
You see, right? Yeah, it was a lesson. It was a lesson learned.
You're lucky it wasn't a Boxer engine, where they're on the side. It's like a Subaru or something.
The thing is now with kids, and this is my millennial complaining department coming out. The thing with kids nowadays is you can take away their car keys. Nick, they don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
Take the car away, they're like, whatever.
I'll take
the phone away, and you'll be lucky to get out of the room alive.
That's correct, because they'll just take a lift if you take the car away.
Yeah. That's it.
Or like one of those little scooters, or bicycle, like share bikes or whatever.
Talking about technology, you know what I just bought? I bought the Segway drift skates.
Oh, did you fall yet?
I haven't even plugged them in. I'm kind of scared to put them on for the first time.
Awesome.
I'm like, yeah, it's also Oregon's. So
can you video that?
I will. So there's this. If you don't,
they had them at CES, but they wouldn't let me try them.
It's a single wheel on each skate, and you charge them, and it's one on each foot,
and it balances.
And you balance. So if you sort of lean forward, it'll go. If you lean back, it'll go. I tell you what I'm worried about.
Are you a skater?
I can skate. I'm not I wouldn't say a skater, but I'm okay. I can roller skate, no problem. I skated as a kid, so the principles are pretty similar. I'm scared of doing the splits.
Oh, I can do that.
That's the one thing. I don't want to accidentally be going, whoa, ow!
You're not worried about the dogs?
Well, my German Shepherd is a little bit, she likes to go for the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Every time we vacuum. Which, that's why we don't vacuum.
The robot.
No, we don't vacuum.
Welcome to the Fast Lane.
We have a
Nik Miles continues.
Well, then you're halfway there.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've had a chat with him, but joining us on the phone is our crazy man, financial scientist, Anton Walhman, who is here to discuss all things business. And still in the studio, Myriam Joire is here. I have to service him every day. And as well as Megan and Jen, and somewhere Ryan and the rest of the team are floating around gathering all the latest news stories.
I have a different vacuum.
Anton, what's been going on? New year. You're just about to buy a car for your daughter. Did Tesla manage to get their financing to stay alive this year?
I'm going to have to buy someone a car.
Not yet. So the big news in this upcoming
Well, I've been looking at the 2019
is that
Jetta
Tesla is scheduled
for Eden,
to report
for my daughter.
its quarterly,
She's
meaning the quarter that
it's
ended
an absolute
December
screaming
31st
deal.
financial
The one I drove was
results
fully
this
loaded. It's
Wednesday
like
afternoon.
$27,000. Fully
And
loaded.
they had a piece of
Everything.
news 9 days ago on Friday.
Jettas are a good deal. All right, coming up, we're going to talk to Joel Hoffman about the new Cadillac XT6. That's the vehicle that was introduced in the Detroit International Auto Show. That's as our auto expert continues.
And that the outlook for the first quarter, meaning the quarter that is now
More of
27 days old,
with Nik Miles is on the way.
very uncertain. So basically, the stock took a bit of a dive on that, but with further details to come here just in barely about 72 hours from now.
Do they have to make financing by the end of this month to keep their debt replenished? Is that correct?
Well, there's no firm rule. So here, there are a couple of things going on. So they have a bond payment of $920 million that is due in March. That is a very specific bogey that a lot of people are focused on because it's kind of a big headline number. They should have enough money to make that payment. They ended the previously reported quarter with about $3 billion in cash, nominally on paper. However, the company also has negative working capital here being accounts payable being larger than the receivables. So it is not for sure where they stand. And of course, when they announced here a couple of weeks ago that they were going to lay off 7% of their full-time employees and an unknown number of their more temporary contractors, that is probably not a sign that basically things are really, really good here in the short term. But again, we will hear more from them on Wednesday, and one of the possibilities is that they are going to get ready to raise new, fresh capital, which is what many people have thought that they should have done here at any point over the last 18 months, but they really haven't.
But they're still selling cars, right? So ultimately, there's income still coming.
So what's happening on the car front? There are a couple of things, ships passing in the night here. The U.S. federal tax credit
got cut in half for Tesla as of the 1st of January. And clearly there were a lot of people that have chosen to take delivery of a Tesla before then in order to capture that quote-unquote free $3,750 that you get by doing it that way. The other thing that's going on is that they have now discontinued sales of their cheapest Model S model, the S75D, for really unexplained reasons. They basically have to put in your order by this week, and then it's all gone after that. The third thing that's going on is that the first boats with the Model 3 cars have now left the port of San Francisco and are en route as we speak to both Europe and to China. So those deliveries are set to start within the next 30 or so days. So as the demand goes down this quarter in the U.S. because of the partial abandonment of the federal tax credit for Tesla, they should be able to fill at least part of that hole by selling in the initial quantities of units of the Model 3, for which there's an obvious backlog, into both Europe as well as into China.
Now, they have reduced the price of the car, so hopefully that they will still have some stimulation for American buyers, right? But
yeah, what happened was that right at the beginning of January, they said, look, we'll lower the price of the Model 3 by $2,000 to partially offset the $3,750 reduction in the federal tax credit. The problem is that, of course, a lot of people didn't know. I mean, if people had known about that back, in December, November, and October, some people might have deferred their purchases till January or February, but everybody they really drained the pipe on that one. So I'm not sure how much that really helps here, at least in the near future, meaning for, basically the first quarter. So, but yeah, they dropped their pants by $2,000 on the price, basically, to try to shake the tree just a little bit more here in the U.S. in the meantime.
So you know what I'll say here? I hear that from some pretty reliable sources that potentially the cars that just shipped to Europe and Asia have autopilot version 3 hardware. So the next generation. And that might be coming to the U.S. in the next two weeks or so. A very similar pattern happened when Autopilot 2 came out. It first was rolled out on European cars, and then they announced about 10 days later the feature. So that means that, to me, it means Tesla's streamlining their operations significantly, because they are, and that's possibly part of the reason for the price lowering. I'm not saying that strategically what you're saying doesn't make sense. I think it does. Obviously, to attract more buyers, you want to lower the price since the discount is gone. But I think that, even over the last 2 years or so they're making cars, they're constantly streamlining manufacturing. If I compare my car with my friends' cars, we actually all have slight differences in glass tinting and stuff. And so it's really interesting how I think they're doing that. And of course, the holy grail is that new hardware that processes data way faster. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
All right, Anton, take a quick break here. We're going to go for some commercials. When we come back, I want to talk about the massive explosion of electric cars. I just got to ride in that brand new Mercedes SUV electric in Las Vegas at CES. We'll talk about that and more when we return.
More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is coming up. He's Nik Miles, and this is Our Auto Expert.
We're talking car tech on this morning's, or today's, I guess, Our Auto Expert. Just a couple of recaps for you. You can hear all the previous shows at ourautoexpert.com. There you can go and listen to all of the shows that we have done in the past. You can also read the latest automotive news, plus see the latest videos. And this week we actually launched our tech website for car tech called Test Miles. And Test Miles now also has a video player of all the latest car tech on it, so you can watch those videos, including the Audi A7 Matrix headlight, which we got to test in Napa Valley, which was one of the pieces of tech we were talking about. And of course, Our Auto Expert is also across the social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And that's also the best way to send us messages. You can send us messages there, and the whole team will answer your questions. One lady who's here to answer all of our tech questions is Myriam Joire. She's in the studio with us.
Hello.
And we're talking about car tech and the way it has advanced. One area of car tech that's really making me happy is that for elderly people. My dad is in his late 70s, scares the living heebie-jeebies out of me when he drives.
I bet.
And the cars in the tech is actually saving us when he drives, because wandering out of the lane is something he was the sharpest tool in the shed at one point. He was the best driver. He was an amazing individual. But as your sense of what's going on the road, your sense of the world diminishes a little bit, your skills aren't as sharp. So one way in which we can feel safer about putting our parents in vehicles is by the advanced tech. Although there's a caveat that goes with that. It has to do everything for you. You can't have tech that you have to interact with, because he still has trouble signing on and off the web.
Right.
So if I give him a car that takes too much input, we're done. It's got to be something like a Subaru Forester, where the car is going to tell him if something's not right, rather than him having to push a series of buttons to find it out. So that's one of the new things. All right, joining us on the phone is Joel Hoffman. He is from Cadillac. And one of the big pieces of news that we had at the Detroit Auto Show that just previously went by was the announcement of the new Cadillac XT6. There was an XT5, then the 4, and now the 6, the big boy. So, Joel, is the set of Cadillacs complete?
I think at this point, in the near future, our fleet of crossovers is fairly complete. There's always potential for new products in the future, but with the XT4 joining the fold this past fall, the XT5 has been our volume leader, and now XT6, I think we've, I think in our view, we've fairly well covered the different customers that we're looking to please with our product line.
So tell us about the 6, because this is the big boy in the family, right? This is the big family hauler.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, the 5 is our 2-row, 5-passenger version, and now the XT6 comes in because we had a bit of an opening in our showroom. The space between the XT5 and, of course, the Escalade being a larger and a differently constructed vehicle left some room for the XT6. So the XT6 brings in a 3-row vehicle with seating for either 6 or 7 passengers, and what we really went after was a 3rd row that was really comfortable and had the spaciousness to be usable. Some of the offerings in this space in the market have 3rd rows, but they just aren't they just aren't really that usable from an adult perspective. And that's a part of the market that we wanted to fulfill and really provide that Cadillac experience with headroom and spaciousness on a 3rd row that would really be useful both for couples going out for dinner together, 3 couples, or if you fold the seats down, you've got room for a long weekend with lots of cargo or whatever you may be. And of course, one thing we want to do in this new product is to go after active families who have either a number of kids or kids with friends that they're picking up and taking them and their stuff with them to do what families do.
One of the big bombshells that got dropped just before the Detroit show was that Cadillac are looking to going electric. But this vehicle, as it stands, is it going to be gasoline? Is it going to be hybrid? The XT6, do we know how it's going to be powered?
Yeah, as it stands, it's powered in the U.S. with a 3.6-liter V6. It's 310 horsepower and 271 foot-pounds of torque. That is our standard powertrain. There are some things going on with Cadillac. There's been an announcement about going electric in the future, and those things involve other products. We aren't really free to talk about all of those, but our standard offering here is the 310 horsepower V6, which we think really does meet the needs of what this customer is looking for. It moves the vehicle very well, and I think when you get the chance to drive one, I think you'll be pleased at how responsive it is.
Now, it's a Cadillac, so presumably the interior is going to be decked out for American modern luxury?
Yeah, that's right. We have 2 different levels of interior that we offer. Everything starts out with leather, with the soft touch surfaces and all the uppers, and a full contribution of features that come with that. One thing you'll see on our instrument panels we've gone with on our premium luxury models, all real wood decorative pieces on the IP and on the door trim. And when you go into the sport model, those switch over primarily to carbon fiber pieces, and all authentic pieces, real aluminums, real woods, real stainless steels, all to give that feeling that the luxury car buyer deserves. And of course, if you get the platinum model, then you move upgrade to leather covered surfaces on the IP and on the door pads, armrests, third row seat, all of it's a high grade of leather.
I noticed by looking at the exterior of this car that although you've managed to maintain the look of a Cadillac, it does look very different from anything that you've produced in the past. So it looks a lot more sharper, the headlights are much narrower, the grille is much smaller, the air vents are huge around the bottom of the vehicle. So there's some proportion changes and a real change to the design of the vehicle.
Yeah, there is. We tried to build off of a couple things. Certainly one thing that is unique to Cadillac is its very vertical signature of the headlamps and tail lamps, particularly at night. We wanted to maintain that. But as you may recall, a couple of years ago, we came out with a concept car called the Escala, which was received quite well.
Oh, yeah.
We built off of that to combine those vertical signatures and then a grille that was more Escala inspired, and some horizontal elements in both the headlamps and the tail lamps, which starts to change the look of Cadillac just a little bit. And you're right, we wanted to bring an upright look to the vehicle. We went with a wider track width on the car to give it more stance for two reasons. Partly because we wanted to give that third row space that I talked about, and a higher roof line helps us do that, but also to fill that space between the XT5 and the Escalade as a vehicle that fills that opening both visually as well as from a capability perspective.
You know, Cadillac, of course, part of the General Motors family, and one of the things that General Motors is famous for is its big, meaty hauling vehicles, the Silverado, the Sierra. There is plenty of them in there. It seems that Americans do really, really well at creating bigger vehicles. It seems to be something that we score home runs on. Was it a challenge, or was it really just putting all that technology that Cadillac and the whole group has learned into one single vehicle?
Well, it was a bit of both. There's some things that we know about larger vehicles and both the things that customers expect and want to have in those vehicles, as well as some of the engineering challenges that go with a bigger vehicle. So those things were kind of known. As we worked on this particular vehicle being a fairly large crossover, one thing that happens for us is as the vehicle and the structure gets bigger, and as you probably are well aware, crossovers have in their basis a somewhat boxy outline. So part of the styling has to deal with that boxy outline, but you also have to have a structure that deals with it. And a boxy structure has some inherent weaknesses in it because of the shapes that you're allowed to use. And so the challenge we had there was how do we get a structure that's stiff enough to do what we needed to do to give us the performance that a Cadillac deserves. And that's one place where I'm really proud of my team is the work that they did in the all unique structure under an XT6 is one of the stiffest structures we have, and it's the stiffest one in the crossover family of products that we offer. So really an achievement there, and it allows us to do things in acoustics and suspensions that we wouldn't be able to do if we didn't have that foundational structure there.
Joel, thanks for giving up part of your Sunday to talk to us. You're listening to Our Auto Expert, the new XT6 arriving in showrooms very soon. We've got more Our Auto Expert to come.
More Auto Expert with Nik Miles is on the way. It's Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles.
Welcome back to the show. In the studio, Myriam Joire. On the phone, Anton Walhman, our financial expert who writes for Seeking Alpha, and also Jen and Megan here. So, Anton, I got the chance to take some time in the new Mercedes electric SUV while we're in Las Vegas at CES, and it looks like there is a lot of new electric cars coming from reading your articles. Is the new Mercedes EQC going to be able to survive?
Well, so what's going on here, just to paint the broader picture, is that there's a little bit of what I call a ketchup bottle effect. So between 2013 and 2015, many decisions were taken by many of the automakers based on regulatory requirements that are basically hitting and taking into full effect starting in most countries right about in year 2020.
And those decisions that were made back then between 2013 and 2015 are all coming to fruition roughly at the same time, with a very long list of models hitting the market here in a short period of time. So by the end of 2022, we count 207, yes, that's right, 207 pure electric cars just outside of China alone that are going to be sold in some combination of Europe and North America, that are essentially all of them of a fairly long range, most of them 200 miles or much longer than that. So that is the big picture here. And of course, Mercedes, being a storied name, bringing out its first from the ground up pure electric EV here that will go into production this summer and first be on sale in Germany and then in the rest of Europe in the fall, and China comes along in November, December, and then in the US is supposed to get it in relatively early 2020, a year from now. That's the timeline on that one. Clearly the car looks good. I haven't driven it yet. Clearly you've been in it, and on paper everything looks pretty good, but keep in mind that they're going to be well over a year after Jaguar here, right, and they're going to be at least a half a year behind Audi, and there'll be others in the meantime that will have come in with very credible offerings, most notably Volvo Polestar, and on the lower price front, Kia and Hyundai are really lapping it up in terms of providing for very good entries.
And of course, we just saw the new Leaf at CES as well, the extended range.
Well, the new Leaf, you could fool any of us on that one because it looks identical to the one that you can go into your friendly Nissan dealer and purchase right now today. You couldn't tell the difference of them at all. It just has 50% more battery capacity, which yields predictably 50% longer range, 226 miles instead of 151, and also 50% more horsepower, which will help a little bit with the acceleration above 30 miles an hour. So, clearly it will depend in terms of the new Leaf as to how they will price it. Rumors had it they were going to price it between $5,000 and $5,500 more than the current one. I think that will be hard because if you actually do the math on that, that probably means that when similarly equipped, both Kia and Hyundai will look like they have a pretty good offering with their Kona EV, their Niro EV, as well as their Soul EV, all of whom will be in the market here in weeks or months from now, depending on the geography. Some countries in Europe gets it before we get it here in the United States. And then, of course, one of these days, Tesla will creep further downward in terms of the price list with the Model 3. They will come out with eventually a slightly shorter range one, and they will take out some of the equipment like the glass roof and the leather seats and a couple of other trinkets, and it will slowly but surely make itself down to that first promised $35,000 price point. And I don't think the Nissan Leaf can afford to start, even with 226 miles of range, at $35,000 in that kind of competitive environment. I mean, I think that car will have to be not really much higher than where it is today, which is about 30,000 even. So I think a lot of these competitors will eat into Nissan's market share. All that said, in Europe, in calendar 2018, the Leaf was up 95% year over year in sales. Yeah, they sold 88,000 Leafs in Europe in calendar year 2018, and that made it by a reasonably wide margin the best-selling EV in Europe.
I think you made some really good points there, Anton. I think that we're going to see a very surprising upheaval or rising of the EV market in the lower end through Hyundai and Kia in particular, and then eventually Volkswagen when they get serious and come out with the replacement, the Golf E replacement. And I think that you're right about Tesla eventually hitting the price point, and maybe the Model Y will be very attractive because I think people love SUVs. But I'm disappointed. Other than Porsche right now, who I think is really doing something interesting, even though it's insanely expensive, I'm a little disappointed with what I'm seeing from Mercedes and Audi because I feel like they're not trying hard enough. When you think that the Mercedes SUV is not going to be out till 2020 and doesn't have a range it has a range that's less than 300, and my Tesla Model 3 does 310 today. It's been doing that for 2 years. It's like, I feel like I was expecting more from the Germans, especially at that high-end price point where they can charge a premium for more range and bigger batteries.
I agree. I think that many of these models leave much more to be desired, and I think that there are a couple of them, though there are a couple of mitigating factors. Both the Jaguar and the Audi do have, not that anybody really in their right mind or they do have some off-road capabilities, and then 2 feet worth of water forging and all of that. All of those things take away a little bit from the range, but I think even adjusting for that, I think that we certainly expected more. I do think that a couple of these models will deliver a lot better. I think that the Polestar 2, which we will see unveiled here in a matter of just weeks from now, will deliver 300 miles worth of solid range. We'll have 400 horsepower. We'll have all of these other goodies that will make it a more credible Model 3 competitor. And I do think that a couple of these other models as well will deliver better results than some of these other entries that we have been talking about here.
And we would be amiss if we didn't mention the fact that the Hyundai Kona, the EV version, was part of their win as the North American Utility Vehicle of the Year. The EV was wrapped in with a regular Kona. So, already that means that these cars are becoming more and more accepted because people are saying, we'll give it an award like the North American Utility Vehicle of the Year. Even though the gas one and the electric one were lumped together in that award. Are we going to see some surprises? And I'll tell you something I learned yesterday purely by accident. Nissan have 5 unveils at the New York Auto Show, including some long-awaited cars. Does that mean a new Z car? Does that mean a new Frontier? Does that mean a new electric car?
GTR EV?
Yeah. Well, what are we going to see in the next 6 months that we don't already know about?
Well, if you look at the oldest nameplates in terms of a full redesign, you will certainly see the Frontier at the top of the list. I don't know, by the way, I don't know what any one of them will be, but Frontier seems pretty high up on the list. The other one is the XC60, which is a pretty good seller for them. It's the one that they make in Tennessee, both the Nissan version as well as the Infiniti version of it, the Nissan Pathfinder / the Infiniti QX60. That one is really old in the tooth, inside and outside alike, so you would think that that would be very high up on the list there. I don't think that we will see anything new on the EV front from Nissan. They just showed their new concept in Detroit, which is 2021 type of car, and on their entirely new platform. But Myriam brought up a good point about Volkswagen, which I should really mention. Volkswagen's all-new platform on the lower price front called the MEB, which will essentially be the replacement of the e-Golf as we know it today, enters production in Zwickau, Germany this November. They'll deliver maybe 1,000 or 2 cars before year-end in Germany, and that car will never make it to the United States, and that body, only the all-wheel drive SUV version will, and that's 9 months after that. But still, if you look at the European market, that one will be a very, very competitive car because it'll be a rear-wheel drive based and will come in multiple, well, actually more than 2. I think it's 3 different battery sizes. And I think it'll be one of those cars that I think the European consumer will flock to in terms of both having the dealer and support network and having the style and the looks
and the charging network.
And the rear-wheel drive fun to drive.
Yeah, and the charging network.
Share that though. So the Ionity is shared between. Ionity is designed as an open network, so theoretically all cars will share that. But I think if I look at the design of everything that we know about that car, it really hits a lot of the check marks. So when that really hits there, I think whether you're a Kia or a Hyundai or a Nissan or any of these other ones, you'll be sweating bullets when the VW really will be available in Europe. And I think it's really sad that Volkswagen did not engineer to pass U.S. crash standards, which is the reason we're not getting it here in the United States. So I'm a little amiss on that. We'll have to go to Europe and test drive it, I guess.
I just got an invite at the Chicago Auto Show to go to a special design forum with VW on their new plans for electrification in the United States. And does that mean that there are plans? There's something going to come? There's something changing?
Well, the first car we get, they've been very clear about what they have in mind for the U.S. The very first car we get on this platform is the so-called, goes under the code name ID Cross, CROZZ. That is the all-wheel drive crossover version of this car that goes into production first in Zwickau, Germany this November. And it will be made initially in just that factory in Zwickau. It just will start for U.S. purposes at the end of September 2020. And so that is the very first car we get here, and they've shown it only in concept car form yet. So the unveil of the final production design of that has not happened yet. So I don't know, maybe that's it.
All right. What else we got to look forward to in big car news coming up this year?
Oh gosh, I mean, it really is. You have some pretty big ticket items outside the electric car world as well. I mean, you have the largest, biggest SUVs. You got the whole Chevy Suburban, Chevy Tahoe, GMC Yukon, Cadillac Escalade. There'll be an all-new one of those coming out. We have the storied Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer from Jeep, which is essentially going to be based on the Ram 1500 pickup truck. Those will all be seen at some point later this year. In terms of high volume cars, we also have the Ford Escape, which is a $350,000 a year just in the United States kind of seller, and we'll see that in a few short months. It'll be in production here come August. So there are some really nice pieces of equipment, and you may have noted that Ford made the announcement last week that they will show their first all-electric crossover, the one that looks like a Mustang from the front and from the rear, but not from the side. That starts production in April of 2020 in Mexico, which they promise will have over 300 miles of range and will do 0 to 60 in some unbelievable amount of time. And they haven't given the product a final name yet, but I think what I've seen from the product, it's going to hit the bullseye as well. So that's going to be another one of those electric crossover SUVs right at the heart of the market, with perhaps a bit of a performance flair.
I'll tell you what I know. And that is two things that you've mentioned there. First of all, that electric crossover, the Mustang Cross, that vehicle will be shown to the public before midsummer this year, as will the Bronco. Probably not at an auto show. They're saying that they'll do a private launch. I'll tell you what else I also was told on the inside is that when I saw the new Escape, I thought Porsche Macan. I looked at it and I thought, and it's not been revealed to the public, I thought Porsche Macan. And the person that showed me the picture, their mouth dropped and they said, "Really?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, that's when we sent it back and asked them to redesign it because it looked too much like the Macan. So that's what we got back.
Yeah,
all right.
So everything you said, Nick, is 100% consistent with what I've heard. And I will add just one thing on the Ford Escape. It will be available both as a hybrid and as a plug-in hybrid version as well.
All right, I like that. Anton Walhman, you can read his stuff at Seeking Alpha. Where can we get hold of you, Myriam?
You guys can find me at the Mobile Tech Podcast. That's mobiletechpodcast.com. And on Twitter and Instagram, it's Tankgirl, TNKGRL.
All right. Our Auto Expert 24/7 at ourautoexpert.com. You can listen to previous shows. MommyTravels.net is where you can find Megan. And Ryan, Jen, and I will be answering all of your social media stuff at ourautoexpert.com. And check out the new testmiles.com website for car tech.